update. I want to talk today about billionaires in politics. We see it on the Republican side with Donald Trump, if indeed he is a billionaire. We don't really know because he won't release his taxes. And on the other side, increasingly, Michael Bloomberg. We know he's a billionaire from the past, but he too refuses to release his taxes, now promising to do so after the primaries in March that will determine how serious his candidacy is. And I won't comment on what it means that these two billionaires, if indeed they are trying to keep secret or at least out of the public eye what their actual financial condition is. But the screaming reality is that they are extremely wealthy, far beyond the vast majority of the people whose president they want to be. And I want to talk about that because we deserve a conversation about that, all the more so as they try to hide the information and distract people's attention away from the question of wealth in general and unequally distributed wealth in particular. Let me put my cards right on the table here. An unequal distribution of wealth, and especially an extremely unequal distribution of wealth, is a burning, urgent issue whenever and wherever it occurs. Basically, people know that. So it takes a lot of work to distract people from so basic an understanding which their lifetimes have conveyed to them already. But the wealthy are up to it, because as the extremely wealthy have always known, there's a basic rule. If you want to keep an extremely unequal wealth distribution in your society, then those of you at the top, the wealthiest, better understand that you need to use a good part of your wealth to keep your wealth. And the only way to do that is to distract the vast majority of people from the reality that they don't have that wealth, that indeed they may be workers who produce the wealth, but they are not the people who get most of the wealth that they produce. That goes instead to a tiny group of people at the top, and they better spend a lot of it distracting those they rip off, or else the game will be over. That is the function of much of modern politics in capitalist societies that produce extreme inequalities of wealth. Lots of effort goes into focusing people somewhere else, on some other issue, any other issue than the distribution of wealth. Everybody is called upon to work, or nearly so, but everybody's not called upon to share in the fruits of the work. Oh no. And in that inequality lies the secret. So notice with me, please, Mr. Trump, Mr. Bloomberg, and if you want to add another billionaire, Mr. Steyer. They talk about lots of issues. Immigration and China and foreigners, that's one. Climate change is another. Gun rights is still another. Yeah, notice anything? Those issues, which are put forward by billionaires, all carefully avoid dealing with the distribution of income that has left those three individuals as billionaires and the rest of us not so much. Well, I'm not against billionaires. I wouldn't even know what the sentence means. It's not a question of this or that person. It's a question of a distribution of wealth so unequal as to make some people able to fund rocket ships to the moon as a hobby, while other people can't send their child to college, or put enough food on the table, or live in a safe neighborhood. You get the picture. Once upon a time, we had billionaires who, under a lot of pressure from below, would actually address that issue. Franklin Roosevelt came from an old, rich, American, extremely wealthy family. But under the pressure of unions and socialists and communists, he invented and put through the New Deal. They made him do it, but at least he did it. We don't have an equivalent movement yet in the United States to force today's billionaires to propose anything about the redistribution of wealth. And by the way, let me conclude with the deafening silence of today's billionaires about the issue of inequality. That the real issue isn't coming up, which they may do, with this or that tax adjustment. We don't need redistribution of wealth. We need a less unequal distribution in the first place so that we don't have to fight over redistribution because we didn't distribute it unfairly in the first place. If we had an appropriate politics to what most of us need and want and think about, we could not tolerate the spectacle of billionaires telling us to focus everywhere but on the question of what kind of society gives a handful of people billions of dollars and the vast majority of people an endless set of worries about food, clothing, shelter, education, and the debts they cannot support.